You should work in an industry where you would become an expert for free. I often speak about what I call radical hospitality, and that's really what we're talking about. It's just not done at a level that makes sense from running a business.
Greg Dathan, welcome to Changing the Business of Golf. Greg, in this series, I asked my guests to talk about 3 things that they would do to change the business of golf for the better. You've actually brought a bonus change for us, and also a question that every golf business, every golf shop should ask a customer when they walk through the doors. But first, let's hear a little bit about you and the background, your backstory. You're president and CEO of the National Golf Foundation. Just tell us what the National Golf Foundation is.
The NGF, founded in 1936, 88-year-old organization. See how I did that math? You know, we're statistics experts. But we're best known as the definitive provider of state of industry information on the golf business. Sometimes I will sort that out by saying we're the trusted pros on the golf economy, because a lot of the work we do is statistically driven. And so you look at the supply side, sort of where golf is played, where it's shopped, where people practice, off-course opportunities. So that you have the whole supply side, and then demand, learning about golfers. And the industry leaders, the business leaders in golf, they look to us to give them information and insights on things that will, are affecting their business now and are going to affect their businesses going forward.
So you really have your finger on the pulse of the industry. Tell me a little bit about your background as well, how you came into golf.
Well, it's been an incredible journey. I did not grow up in a golf household. Nobody in my family played golf. I was a tennis player, competitive tennis player, and I was even a club pro at 2 golf clubs in Westchester County, New York. And that gave me a little bit of access to some nice golf after hours, after my tennis job. But I guess the place where I would put the baseline is, by the time I was 22 or 23 years old, Gary, I knew I wanted to work in golf. It was very clear in my mind, and that is such a gift.
Why? What was the motivation?
Well, I just saw there was something about golf that connected with me in a very deep level. I've always been someone who, when I was attracted to something, I would generally be more attracted to things that have multiple layers that you could go as deeply into as you chose to. And golf appealed to me on so many levels, not only the activity of golf, of loving the game, loving golf course architecture, being interested in professional golf and golf history and the great players and the great architects. If you have sort of that insatiable thing inside you, I was like, okay, I want to do this. And the way that I was so sure is because, and I talk to people all the time about this, you should work in an industry where you would become an expert for free. Like, you would just do it because you love it, whether you worked in that industry or not. So by the time I actually made it into the golf industry, Gary, I was already reading everything that was available to just try and absorb as much as possible about this unbelievable game that so many people in the world enjoy.
And reading about it on a magazine that you worked on as well. You were on Golf Magazine.
Yeah, that's one of the more interesting things about my journey, is that I learned how to play golf from reading Golf Magazine and Golf Digest. And my first golf job was working at Golf Magazine and Golf.com. That was from 2000 to 2007. And coming to work that first day, I think it's June 1st, 2000, that George Pepper, the longtime editor-in-chief, had a glass front window that literally was at the end of a row from where my very fancy cubicle was. And so just the fact that, every time I left my cubicle, if George happened to be in there, it's like, there he is. That's one of the people that taught me the game. And so, George and Jerry Tardy, those two gentlemen have so much to do with me being here today instead. And then, working at 3 agencies, getting the job at Golf Magazine, doing that for 7 years. And now I'm in my 18th year at the National Golf Foundation.
So we're going to talk about that mixture of insights and solutions for the golf industry, maybe with a little bit of advertising and marketing sparkle in there as well. Greg, your first change for the business of golf is to sell golf like any other product. Why does golf need to sell itself at the moment when memberships, clubs are full with members, golf courses are packed?
Gary, golf always needs to be sold as an activity. This game's been around for 400 plus years, depending on who you ask. And why shouldn't we be sharing this amazing game with the next generation of people, or people of any age who just haven't discovered it yet and what it can do for them?
Are we not selling it well? Is that your point?
No, I don't believe golf as an activity is sold very well at all. And the story I often tell is that an experience that a lot of people have. You go to a cocktail party, inevitably you're going to meet someone who, let's say, is an accountant or an attorney, or maybe their financial advisor. Inevitably in that conversation, they're going to talk about what they do. They're going to talk about, perhaps they're going to talk about the value that they bring to some of their clients. And they might even ask you, who's your accountant or who's your attorney? Well, I can't remember the last time that I went to an event like that. That was not a golf-specific event, but where I went to an event like that and you met someone who worked in golf, and they said, Gary, do you play? And if the answer happened to be no, that conversation has a place where it needs to go. Where just the discussion of what golf can bring to a person, and maybe even say, are you interested? And because if you are interested, I'd be happy to take you out to play, or I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about that would make it more comfortable for you to get into the game. I just think there is an odd thing that looks kind of like this, where some folks who work in golf just think it's just for us, and that's a problem when people who golf has done so much for, they don't really look at it as, not even as a responsibility, but something that they love to do.
You've spoken before as well about this kind of almost strange situation where golfers, the customers, are on a course, and actually they would rather be on the course on their own. This millionaires, billionaires, golf, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of a tension there. Are
Mm-hmm.
people just not programmed to share that, to say, look, come to my club, it's a great place?
It's an odd thing about the culture. I mean, 75% of U.S. golf courses are public. But yet it's just not common enough, for example, for people who work at a golf facility. It's not common enough. It happens, but that they go into the community. If you're running any type of business, and I often look at golf as a retail business, you are going to that business, you are paying a greens fee, you're going to have that transaction, and then you're going to go and take advantage of the service they provide. Well, if you want to grow customers and you're in any business whatsoever, you need to leave the business. You need to go out into the community. And that is just not something that is sort of in the fabric of the way golf facilities operate. And of course, I'm making a broad generalization. There are some who do it well. But in terms of the 14,000 U.S. golf facilities, 16,000 courses, it's just not done at a level that makes sense from running a business, and especially not running a retail business.
One thing we see in our business, and creating a brand story for a golf course or a golf club, often golf is sold in quite a straightforward way. It's, here's our golf course, here are the competitions, here are the things that you can do. Often missing the point about the motivations of why people might want to come to golf. And we know that from your statistics, there's a large number of people who are interested in golf. Yet we don't seem to be selling them, golf in a way that addresses their motivations, their wants and needs.
Hmm. I mean, I think it's even more than that. It is, um, of course, there are golf's intrinsic values that agree with a lot of people's sensibilities. It's outdoors, it's social, it's exercise, it's a challenge, it's something that you want to get better at. So there are these natural attractions of the activity, but golf and the golf course environment historically, it's very intimidating for someone who's not already in the franchise. And so you've been hearing for years the same three things that get trotted out in terms of the reason why 10 million people tried golf in the past 5 years who'd never tried it before, but golf grows by a much smaller fraction of that. And it's because, people who are spending time in an environment that they find intimidating, that's not fun. And people prioritize things in their life that are fun. And so there's a certain barrier that needs to be broken down. And the three things are not the game's too hard and it costs too much and it takes too long. The real barrier is the intimidation and not feeling welcome and appreciated as a novice, as a woman, as a person of color. It makes it even more intimidating environment historically.
Greg, we've spoken about the way we sell golf and how we can improve that. And one of the points you've made through your data is that something like 5 to 6 million people are coming to golf, perhaps for the first time each year. But the stickiness of golf, the success of golf businesses in retaining those people who turn up, we're missing out.
Yeah, it's all about fun and feeling uncomfortable, being concerned about doing the wrong thing. Does that sound like fun to you? It's not. And it's removing that feeling of discomfort. I often speak about what I call radical hospitality. And that's really what we're talking about.
What does radical hospitality mean?
Those who are in the hotel business, there's no question they know they're in the hospitality business. Their everyday life is about taking care of people and making them feel comfortable. And I think that idea often is a little bit foreign to golf. And in many cases, at golf's front door, as I call it, that front door it's just a little bit too transactional. You pay your greens fee, you go out and play, maybe you buy some food and beverage, maybe you buy something in the shop. But in many cases, it's kind of like left to you to do with what you will. And make no mistake about it, golf is the hospitality business. And from our study, we know there are a number of things that have historically held back the growth of the game. And a lot of it is about people feeling uncomfortable in the golf course environment. Well, how do you make people feel comfortable? Well, people in the hospitality business, they know how to make people feel comfortable. And there's so much for golf to learn from that in terms of making you feel appreciated and never taking for granted that that person at your golf course knows where to go and what to do. Because those who don't, they're nervous. And being nervous, being anxious about being in any environment is not a way for golf to be sticky. Now, of course, there's operators and owners who do it very well, but the industry would be a better one if that was something that was much more present and upfront at every golf course as being an important thing as it relates to the training of people and how they actually show their appreciation for you as a customer being there.
One thing that comes up time and again in this situation is dress codes. It seems to be incendiary, particularly at clubs. But is it the case that actually this is an inflated issue? That actually members perhaps are more relaxed about it than we might think, but it's really, really important from the new customer perspective.
It definitely is for this generation who goes on to, is on social media and sees what's out there in terms of the different ways that people get to express their own individuality. And the clothes, the shoes, they're a great fun part of the game. But as it relates to dress code, let's just let's just look at golf as a product, okay? And you've got these 16,000 golf courses. There's so many different products being offered across those 14,000 facilities. So there are going to be certain places where it's a much more traditional golf product that you're consuming. And in those environments, I think most people actually want to dress in the way that you might be if you were at a top 100 private club. There's a certain reverence for that product, where on another day, that same golfer might be at a $70 daily fee golf course in a rural environment and might have a totally different way that they choose to express their individuality through their dress. So the point in all this is that there's room for all kinds of different product across the spectrum, and it's not all the same. And you know, dress code is going to be different across the full spectrum of golf courses. And that's the part that we should embrace. Is it doesn't have to be the same everywhere. And there should be places where you can go out and play in a t-shirt and jeans, just for people to feel comfortable doing that. And believe me, there are places in America right now, more than people think, where dress code is not a thing and they don't care about it. They just want you to be there and be out there playing and enjoying yourself.
Give me a flavor, if you like, of perhaps among these 5 to 6 million people coming back to golf or coming to golf for the first time. Well, paint a picture of the customer journey, how it could be, and how it's going to make them feel comfortable and not intimidated. What's the flow?
Well, if I was needing to do something that maybe I haven't done much before or I'm not familiar with, the first place you go typically is you're going to go to the internet. And we've looked into this quite a bit. And if you went on Google right now, and I'd encourage you to do so at some point, and put in want to start at golf, beginner at golf, any of the words that you might put in if you wanted to research on your own how to get into the game, what you're going to find are 10 million hits, 10 million links, and most of them are going to go to grip, stance, and posture. They're going to go to how to swing a golf club. And I think that there is this open space relative to that part of the journey where someone is going to go to the internet first. This is a place where the NGF is investing heavily in something called Welcome to Golf, where we are building that portal where someone who wanted to start in golf would go. Might there be a little bit of instruction involved in Welcome to Golf? Sure, because competence, getting a level of competence is important. But what's even more important, based on our conversation already, is how do you give them the tools to be comfortable when they go, to know where to go and what to do. And that's something that's the earliest part of the journey. Currently, that asset doesn't exist where someone would be able to do that same type of research and have it be very easily accessible and show that golf doesn't need to take itself so seriously and make you comfortable. But the alternative is for a novice to show up at a golf course. And as I said, some folks do it very well in making people feel welcome, but many people show up and they go in to the environment, they go and they don't know whether they should pull up to the valet. They don't know whether they should self-park. They don't know exactly what they should do first when they show up. That's an uncomfortable situation. So that journey, we want it to be as smooth as possible relative to this radical hospitality concept. everybody who works at the golf course should have that in mind, that this person may not know where to go and what to do, and to take on the mindset of making them feel comfortable immediately, versus I think what is often common, which is the taking for granted that they know what they're doing.
Syngenta has sported a program called Love.Golf, which is designed specifically for women. It looks at golf and the way golf is taught and coached in a very, very different way. But the customer journey comes right back to before, what happens before when people are looking and searching, right through to the car park. Actually, the car park is a really big thing
Yes.
for a lot of new female customers. They drive in, they feel really intimidated. And what happens is we put someone in the car park to meet and greet people in the car and walk them in, show them where to go. People are really, really intimidated. So personal welcome, perhaps even signage can be far more important. It's a kind of a silent kind of a silent salesperson in some ways, or a silent host. These things they're small, but really, really important in terms of the experience.
And it's in this day that is such a digital and screen-based world, golf has this incredible opportunity of being that human place. Okay, it's a very analog experience, golf is, and the more those human touches are those that make people comfortable, the better off the game will be.
Greg, your next change for the business of golf is for golf courses to give away free 10-minute golf lessons. Why?
When we've looked at the things that lead to commitment, we've talked a lot about the people who try and don't stay. But there are a couple of things through our study that have risen to the top, 10, 15 years of studying. And generally they're broken up into two groups. Okay, so there's comfort, which we've talked about a lot, and competence. So this discussion about lessons and making them far more accessible and affordable, of course, that's on the competence side. The comfort side generally is, I'm comfortable in the golf course environment, I'm comfortable with other golfers. The competence side is, I play well enough to enjoy the game. It's not I shoot in the 90s, I shoot in the 80s, I shoot in... That's not it. It's, can I play well enough to get around the golf course and enjoy the game, right? The other piece, which we talk a lot about, is you're only going to get committed to golf if you get shot euphoria. Shot euphoria being that wonderful feeling that golf's addictive drug. Okay, golf has this addictive drug, shot euphoria. And
this is the shot out the middle of the club face where it feels just perfect and the ball's flying.
The ball goes airborne, everything we always dream of when we play golf. And people like me spend the rest of your life trying to get shot euphoria as much as possible. And golf is so fortunate to have a drug like this addictive drug in this way. Well, how are you going to play well enough to enjoy the game? And how are you going to get shot euphoria more often if you don't have access to at least some instruction? So I've spoken with many, many golf course owners and operators, including like Don Ray, the new elected president of the PGA of America. And he couldn't agree with me more relative to making lessons accessible, having a golf pro walk the range every day and give a short lesson. And of course, if someone gets those 10-minute lessons or even 2-minute lessons and it helps them, of course that's going to create business for the golf professional staff. I mean, free samples is not a new concept. It's actually been quite successful over the history of many different types of businesses.
Yeah, but ask golf professionals, and I speak as the son of a PGA professional.
Right.
I can't give stuff away, I'm selling my time here. I'm selling my expertise.
Yes. And I have the utmost respect for the PGA professionals and those who teach golf who are not PGA professionals. But I think if presented in the right way, and the idea that you're connecting with a golfer and you're helping them achieve what we all want, which is that those who try the game stay with it. And I just think there's a mindset there that most PGA professionals who believe, have a business mind would believe, that's good for my business. It's good for the golf course's business, for golfers who are there to feel that shot euphoria feeling and to feel like they're on the road to, I think I would be able to play golf well enough to enjoy it. So it's like giving someone the chance to hit a good shot on the range really quickly. Of course, they're going to sell more lessons as a result, another business benefit. But the ultimate benefit is someone getting shot euphoria or feeling that they play well enough that they can have fun. And that's how they're going to stay.
And it's an interesting situation because I think you may have said a statistic that something like 13 to 14% of golfers actually take lessons. So this is a relatively, and this is golfers rather than new customers. So it's a relatively small amount. I've also seen a kind of discussions. It was an idea around maybe within a club or within a golf course business, assigning a pro or a customer being assigned to a pro, almost in the way that you would have a doctor. That seems like an interesting idea. Could that work?
I think the idea of having a member of your professional staff, and I'm never suggesting that this has to be the head pro, the director of golf. They have other responsibilities, but why not, if possible, you have a member of your professional staff who they spend time on the range. They're with customers. I've spoken with so many PJ members and directors of golf who talk about sort of reversing the paradigm of having the golf professional staff being in the shop really at all. Where should they be? They should be out there providing radical hospitality. They should be out there helping people play better, getting more comfortable in the environment. We all know that, golf's best customer is someone who's improving. And so there's just so much of a trickle-down effect that's positive for a golf course business that comes from this idea. And obviously, it's easy for me to say, it's just an idea, it's a prescription, something to make a golf course business better.
And ultimately, as you said, it's about driving revenue, and other businesses, other industries do this all the time. Greg, your next change for the business of golf is incentivizing club managers, PGA professional staff at clubs and courses to acquire and retain customers. And we talked at the beginning about better selling golf. Is this a follow-on from that?
It is. I think anyone who studies business would look at the golf course business and say, you know what? Those leaders in my golf course or club, the ones that I invest the most in, those that I pay the most, well, in any business, you would expect those people to help you bring in new customers and retain new customers. So there's an element of incentive that is totally up to the owner. Okay, it's totally up to the owner and the operator relative to the behavior of your top people. Really is going to be best dictated by the person who signs their checks. And if you prioritize growing the number of customers for your golf course, right now, tee sheets are full. To some degree, there are folks where that's not the priority. But so many times in the last, several decades, that would be a top priority. Is like any business, you need new customers. So what's the way to make that happen? It's to provide some incentive to those who have the most potential to bring new customers. And early on, we talked about that means essentially going off of your property. If you're otherwise, you might be doing some marketing, but you're waiting for people to show up. I just think the idea of proactivity is much more likely to happen if those who are the most senior leaders in your facility, that they have skin in the game. Now, that might mean, in terms of the economics of running a golf course, that might mean having to attract people that have that type of confidence that they can do that, where, you know what, I'm happy to take a lower salary because I know that I'm going to help bring in new customers and new revenue for this business. That's a culture that I think golf would be much better off if it was embraced. And I don't think that's very common these days. And when I occasionally will receive a phone call from a PGA professional who, might ask me for career advice, that's the advice that I give them. To say, if you believe that you can create new golfers, for example, if you were a pro at a private club, that might mean bringing in other family members besides the main member and get them engaged in the game, creating a new customer. If you're at a public golf course, that's much more wide open in terms of who that might be. But you hear those words, grow the game, grow the game, grow the game. What that means to me is creating a golfer from a non-golfer. And the likelihood of that happening becomes much higher, I believe, if those key people are incentivized to do that.
And it's an interesting point. You said earlier that golf is an analog game. There's kind of that, face-to-face aspect, of it. And yet we kind of still sell golf as we're a club, or here's some membership, or here's an 18-hole golf, here's our green fee, etc., without that personal interaction. And also going back to your point about the customer experience, if we have, I guess, people out there proactively selling golf, engaging, asking questions about people, there's likely to be a much better customer journey coming into the business.
There is. It shows that you're wanted, first of all. I mean, I live in South Florida, so when I talk about this, sometimes I think about Publix supermarkets. Like, if I was a director of golf at a golf course, I might have a member of my staff on some particular schedule sitting outside the entrance and exit of Publix with a sign that says, have you always been interested in playing golf but never taken that step? And creating that conversation. And one of the things I think related to any business is, if you know somebody at that business, and that could mean that experience of meeting John, the golf professional at Rolling Hills Golf Club outside Publix, then that pro will say, look, when you come, here's my card, ask for me. That's a way to create that comfort level. So this sort of combines the selling, both the selling of the game and the radical hospitality and the incentivizing of golf pros to create new customers for their business.
We've talked about that proactivity, that engagement. Now, we promised everyone that there would be a question that you recommend that every golf business should ask. Maybe it's asked in the golf shop, but maybe it's asked wherever in the club. What is that question?
Well, Gary, we've all had that experience where we walk into a retail environment and there are people there, associates on the floor, whose job it is to help you, right? Well, in my opinion, golf has become very transactional in certain ways. And so what happens. You walk into that retail store and there's certain things that you're going to hear. You're going to hear, are you looking for something? How can I help you? If you can't find what you're looking for, come find me. I think those are automatics. Of course, the individual will look for an associate to help. But I think I have a certain level of confidence that the question that they really should be asking, and it's not a transactional question, it's the beginning of a conversation. And so that question is, Gary, tell me about your game. If you ask that question, think about all the different places that conversation can go. That is not a question saying, Gary, what are you going to buy today? Okay? That's a question saying, I care about you. I'm interested in your golf journey. And you could respond, or the individual will respond in a variety of ways. They might say, to tell me about your game, they might say, I'm going to Scotland next week. And then all of a sudden there's a conversation about where you might be playing. You could say, I'm really struggling with my short putting. And that could end up with a conversation about buying a putter. It could end up a conversation about a lesson. There's so many different ways that it could go. And they're all better than asking, are you going to buy something? Essentially, that's code. The other things they ask are code for, are you going to buy something
I'm
today?
fine, thanks very much, goodbye.
Yeah, because I want you to buy something from me. And it's a relationship. Golf is a relationship business. So this is just a microcosm of this, where that person on the floor is interested in you, cares about how you feel about your golf game right now, and it creates a dialogue. And that's what golf businesses want.
Greg, some great advice there, things that people can put into practice in their golf business today. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for your ideas. Greg Nathan, thanks very much for speaking to Changing the Business of Golf.
My pleasure, Gary. Thank you. Enjoy being with you.